Welcome to the wizarding world of the Weeaboo Warrior. In this video, I'm going to be ranking pretty much all of the major characters and creatures of the Harry Potter franchise in terms of how powerful I believe they are. The main focus will be around the Harry Potter books and movies, with some added content from the Fantastic Beasts movies as well as the game Hogwarts Legacy. Now let's start this magical adventure, shall we? The bottom tier houses all of the creatures I deem to be below human level and not really a lethal threat to us. Bowtruckles are small plant-like creatures that have long, sharp fingers they can use to gouge at their attacker's eyes. Billywigs are fast-flying insects and can deliver a sting that can cause their target to float. Snidgets are extremely fast, small birds that used to be used in Quidditch before the snitch was invented. Jobberknolls are bigger birds. Puffskeins are harmless, but they can stick their tongue up your nose. Baby manticores have claws and stingers, but they're easily crushed underfoot. The baby dragon Norbert was able to shoot a small fire blast, which should be enough to cook the creatures below. Nifflers are crafty creatures that have good reaction speed and can slip through small crevices. Chupacabras are similar in size, but they have sharp teeth and are more aggressive. Deercalls are actually what us muggles call dodos, but they didn't actually go extinct. They just have the power to teleport. Mooncalves are peaceful creatures, but they're quite a bit bigger than the ones below. They may charm some with their cuteness, but others may have fun knocking them around. Doxies are flying venomous fairy-like creatures. Mrs. Norris and Crookshanks are cats and can probably maul the creatures below. Surprisingly, we can power scale these two cats, as J.K. Rowling herself said Crookshanks would win in a very close and brutal fight due to his Kneazle ancestry. The Monster Book of Monsters is an insanely vicious book that will attack anything that moves. It was strong enough to give adult men trouble, and could cause severe damage to the smaller creatures in this tier. Even if the book can't finish them off, it can probably outlast them considering it runs on magic and probably doesn't get tired. Fire drakes are small flying lizards that can emit sparks from their tails. They could easily set the Monster Book of Monsters on fire and take the rest of the creatures out by setting their surroundings ablaze. The Muggle Tier is for non-magical folk and creatures that can pose a threat to them. Young Neville, despite being a wizard, is at the bottom of this tier as he has absolutely no talent in magical combat. Young Finnegan wasn't much better as pretty much all of his spells resulted in them blowing up in his face. Cornish pixies are incredibly strong for their size, with just 2 of them being enough to lift Neville completely off the ground. They're smart and can even somewhat use wands if they manage to get a hold of one. Grindylows are bigger, have sharp teeth, and can be quite dangerous while in the water, especially in groups. They made Fleur drop out of the second try wizard tournament task. Murtlaps can give a human some trouble with their strength, despite being much smaller, and their venomous bite can be quite debilitating for muggles. Auguries are large birds that eat fairies and insects. Foopers are owl-like birds with a higher Ministry of Magic classification rating. Their song will eventually drive the listener insane. Hedwig is a very intelligent owl, and she can use that intelligence to take her massive talons and gouge them into someone's jugular. Giant purple toads aren't really a threat to adult humans, but they could probably gobble up the creatures below, and they would be pretty hard for a person to kill without a weapon. Kneazles are large cats that can probably take down the creatures below. The snake from the zoo was a Burmese python in the movie and a boa constrictor in the book. It was stated that it was the biggest snake in the zoo and long enough to wrap its body around Vernon's car twice and crush it. Boas don't nearly get that big, and no snake could crush a car, so maybe the book was being hyperbolic because it's being told from the view of an 11-year-old Harry. Or maybe J.K. Rowling just doesn't know much about snakes. Anyways, this is the place I think an actual large boa or average-sized Burmese python would go. If we take the book statement seriously, it would go a tier up, if not 2. Demiguises are nearing human size and can turn invisible, as well as see the most likely immediate future, both of which are abilities that can help in combat. They're usually peaceful but can bite if provoked. Griphook and the other non-combatant goblins never really got to show off what they're capable of and are smaller than humans, so I rank them below. The Dursleys represent your average muggle. Filch is a squib, which means he had magical parents but he himself can't use magic. So essentially he's a regular human, but his magical knowledge could give him an edge. Jacob Kowalski may not have a lot of height or muscle, but he has a lot of heart. And out of all the muggles, he had the best combat feats, smacking unsuspecting wizards and punching out a goblin gangster. We're getting up into the low student tier, and this tier is for characters on par with competent wizarding students in their first few years of school. Kappas are Japanese water demons that feed on the blood of humans. If it loses the water in its head, it loses its strength. Wyverns have the strength to lift and fly with an adult man. This means they also have the power to drop said man. Lucrotas are essentially big-mouthed moose, and moose were already scary enough. Unicorns are essentially just horses with a horn. They can cave a person's head in with their hooves, or shish kebab them with their horn. Chillin are part dragon, part horse, and maybe partially resistant to the killing curse, as an adult managed to seemingly take 2 shots of Avada Kedavra before going down, and even then it took a while for it to finally die. Dugbogs are giant frog creatures that are capable of grabbing and dragging deers to their watery grave. Aragog's children were large and dangerous, but they could be taken out by second-year Harry. Inferi are essentially the zombies of the Harry Potter world, and they're immune to most attacks and spells, with fire being their one weakness. Albus Potter was initially terrible at magic, and Scorpius Malfoy was a bit of a spaz. Neither of them saw much combat, but they did manage to escape from the Trolley Witch, who has stopped the likes of Sirius, Fred, and George, though we don't know how old they were at the time. The Cursed Child only goes up to their 4th year at Hogwarts, and considering their incompetence, I would say the low student tier is appropriate. Colin Creevey was a part of Dumbledore's army and ended up dying in the Battle of Hogwarts. He was essentially replaced by Nigel in the movies, who was also in Dumbledore's army and managed to perform a successful stunning spell on Harry. Ron in his early years at Hogwarts was able to knock a troll out by dropping its own club on its head, and has a spell that can make his opponents continuously barf up slugs. Draco Malfoy during his early years was above average for his age, being skilled in broom flight as well as dueling, using spells to bully other students, such as when he used the Leglock curse on Neville. He also plays dirty, which could give him an edge against more noble opponents of a similar caliber to him. Harry Potter of a similar age would go right above him, as he's proven himself to be a better flyer with an inferior broom, and landed a spell on Draco after the duel started rather than before. Hermione in her first couple years seemed to be a step above all of her classmates, having the most magical knowledge by far. She froze Neville in place with Petrificus Totalis, and was able to immobilize all of the Cornish pixies at once, while most of the other kids, as well as their teacher, were running from them. She also wasn't afraid to get physical, making Malfoy run after decking him in the schnoz. Despite the fact he ran from the pixies Hermione detained, I put Gilderoy Lockhart a spot above her. This may be a surprise to some of you, but Lockhart was actually above average in intelligence and ability, with his magical skills once being rather good. But he was so lazy he decided to only practice memory charm so he could steal other wizards' achievements, and ignored all of his other abilities. This caused his skills and other magic to become rusty almost beyond repair, which is why he seemed like such a buffoon when we saw him. But as long as he has a working wand, he should be able to obliviate the students below him. The mid-student tier is for characters that are proficient in magic but are not yet on the level of an adult wizard. Fawkes the Phoenix is an immortal creature that was able to scratch out the eyes of a basilisk and was strong enough to carry multiple people at once. In the books, he straight up ate a killing curse and just revived out of his ashes. When he dies, he becomes a helpless chick again, so he's essentially defeated at that point, though it seems he can grow up pretty quickly. A Phoenix's tears can heal, so maybe Fawkes could cry on himself to prevent himself from turning to ash and being reborn. Phoenixes also have the power to disappear and reappear at will. Madigos are spirit familiars that are essentially cougar-sized cats. They won't attack unless attacked first, but if they're hit with a spell, they'll multiply, making them seemingly impossible to put down for good. This spot represents a single Madigo, but based off how many times it multiplies, it could be ranked much higher. Merpeople have near human level intelligence, are fast swimmers, and wield sharp tridents. Centaurs have similar intelligence, but are bigger, reside on land, and have ranged weapons. The Centaur Firenze managed to scare off a weakened Voldemort-Quirrell combo after they killed a unicorn. Werewolves are powerful creatures that will indiscriminately kill anyone in the vicinity. Lupin as a werewolf defeated Sirius Black in dog form, and third-year Harry and Hermione had to run from him. The Hippogriff Buckbeak managed to beat back and scare Lupin off. Thestrals were able to attack giants along with Buckbeak in the Battle of Hogwarts. They are invisible to anyone who hasn't seen death, which would make them extremely difficult for anyone who hasn't seen death to deal with. But as long as they're visible, I would rank them below Buckbeak. Kelpies are water beasts that often take the form of a horse and use their powerful swimming ability to drag people down to their watery doom. Trolls are large humanoid creatures that reach 12 feet tall and weights of over a ton. They're incredibly strong, but also incredibly stupid, with the mountain troll from the Philosopher's/Sorcerer's Stone getting defeated by first-year Harry, Ron, and Hermione. The Weasley's flying car could just run over most of the creatures and characters below, with the troll being the only thing strong enough to defeat it. But considering the troll was knocked out by its own club being dropped on its head, a flying car ramming into its head would probably kill it. The car also seemed unironically smarter than the troll. Erumpents are giant rhino-like creatures with a large horn on their snout that can inject a fluid that causes their target to explode. It's likely too big and tough for the car to put down. The Whomping Willow busted up the flying car and was used to keep Lupin in his werewolf state in check, so it would go above them. The Erumpent blew up a smaller tree, but I think a tree with the size and ferocity of the Whomping Willow would be too much for it. It's limited by the fact it can't move anywhere, but most of the creatures below would have to get within its striking range to try and destroy it. Dementors are known for being one of the foulest creatures in the wizarding world, feeding off the happiness of humans. Their mere presence causes their surroundings to freeze, and they can suck the soul right out of someone. There's no known way to permanently kill them, and the only known spell that can drive them off is the Patronus Charm. The next group of students were a part of Dumbledore's army and learned the Patronus Charm and should be able to drive off a single Dementor, as well as have the spells and wit to defeat the other creatures below. Cho is at the bottom of them, because she said she could never stun anything before her training with Dumbledore's army. Lavender Brown doesn't have anything good or bad going for her, so she's next. Seamus Finnegan is good with pyrotechnics, so having a positive puts him above her. Cormac McLagan is your typical Chad normie, and his increased athletic ability would give him the edge over his other classmates. So I award him King of Being Mid. The high student tier is for students who are at the graduate level, and adult wizards who aren't specialized in dueling or combat. Akamis are creatures that can adjust their size to the space they're in, and they can become quite large, to the point I think they would physically overwhelm the people and creatures below. They can also fly and move extremely quick despite their large size. Ollivander doesn't have any combat feats and was kidnapped by Death Eaters, so he can make as many wands as he likes, but until he shows he can fight with them, he doesn't go any higher. Xenophilius Lovegood attempted to stun Harry and his friends, but ended up just blowing up an Erumpent horn. Mundungus Fletcher's a coward, but he was still good enough to be a part of the Order of the Phoenix. He managed to apparate away from Voldemort's killing curse, so he should be able to do the same to Xenophilius' spell. Scabier was a Snatcher, and this spot basically represents the fodder enemy wizards. Queenie Goldstein doesn't have many combat feats, but she managed to take one aura down with a chair while walking away. She's a Legilimens, which means she has the power to read minds, so this could allow her to see what her opponent's thinking and give her an edge during combat. Professor Trelawney launched crystal balls at her enemies during the Battle of Hogwarts, one of them hitting an unsuspecting Fenrir Greyback, knocking him out. Pious Thickness was the Minister of Magic for a short time as Voldemort's puppet, put under the Imperious Curse by the Death Eater Yaxley. In the Battle of Hogwarts, he lost to Percy in a duel twice, once in a one-on-one, and once with Percy getting help from his father. Fleur Delacour, later known as Fleur Weasley, was a contestant in the Triwizard Tournament, and fought in the Battle of the Seven Potters and the Battle of Hogwarts. In the film, she was stunned by Victor Krum in the third task, which is why I put him above her. Cedric Diggory defeated the brainwashed Krum, so he goes above him. Though in the books, Krum was actually torturing Cedric with the Cruciatus Curse before Harry came and stunned him. But Krum got the drop on Cedric, so I think going off the more fair fight in the movie makes more sense. Crabbe and Goyle were able to use Avada Kedavra and Fiendfire, with Crabbe being the one to use them in the book, and Goyle being the one to use them in the movie. Fiendfire is particularly powerful and can even destroy Horcruxes, but they can't control it, and it leads to their death. Cedric Diggory doesn't fare well against the Killing Curse, which is why I put those two above him. The twins Parvati and Padma Patil were Dumbledore's army members and skilled duelists, with Parvati dueling the Death Eater Travers in the Battle of Hogwarts, managing to shoot a spell at another Death Eater during the fight. Neville Longbottom started off hopeless in combat, but after training with Dumbledore's army, he improved significantly, and near the end of his 5th year at Hogwarts, he stunned a Death Eater with the same spell that once stunned him in his first year. Near the end of the Battle of Hogwarts, he defeated Fenrir Greyback along with Ron. Luna Lovegood also defeated a Death Eater in her 5th year, and in her 7th she dueled Bellatrix Lestrange to a standstill with the help of Hermione and Ginny. Draco Malfoy has shown he's adept in the use of the Imperious Curse and can use the Cruciatus Curse as well. He gave Harry some trouble in a duel during their 6th year, as well as temporarily held his own against him in the Deathly Hallows Part 1 film. He was essentially Harry's rival, was the leader of his Slytherin gang, and was one of the best Quidditch players in the school, so it makes sense for him to be at the top of the high student tier. And if I didn't put him there, his father would have heard about it. The low professor tier is for characters above the average adult wizard. Professor Umbridge is the worst teacher Hogwarts has ever seen. It's only fitting to put her at the bottom of low professor. She used her magic to keep her students in line, and can blow through walls with the spell Bombarda Maxima. In the movie, she was able to react to an arrow from a centaur and easily defeated him, seemingly having the situation under control. Though in the book she was overwhelmed by the herd, even without the interference of Grop. Professor Quirrell, another trash professor, was adept in nonverbal and wandless magic, creating fire with a snap of his finger in the movie and tying Harry up with a rope in the book. He was confident he would have succeeded in killing Harry on his broom, even with Snape trying to stop him with his counter curse. His combat feats consist of defeating a large troll, killing a unicorn, and flying up to and choking a child, so overall he isn't that impressive. He even called himself weak, and I would venture he was right, considering he couldn't even stop an 11-year-old boy from touching him. Voldemort described him as young, foolish, and gullible to his other followers on the night he had his powers restored, and Snape called him a mediocre wizard, so I think it's likely Quirrell's below most accomplished Death Eaters. Leta Lestrange managed to knock back one of Grindelwald's top followers, Vinda Rosier, with a spell, but she was kind of taken off guard, and Vinda's only feat was failing to kill a Qilin with one spell. Narcissa Malfoy wasn't afraid to stand up to her sister Bellatrix, using a spell to get her off of her. She was likely skilled in occlumency, since Voldemort could not tell she was lying when she said Harry Potter was dead. She dueled Harry and Ron along with her son, but she looked more confident than Draco, and fired a spell at Harry even though Ron was her main opponent, meaning she was likely covering for her son. Ron was driving her back, so I put him during the events of the Deathly Hallows above her. Ron stunned the skilled Death Eater Yaxley and later disarmed him while not even looking. He also disarmed Bellatrix, though she was off guard. He took out a Death Eater mid-flight, which impressed Tonks and Hermione, defeated a couple Snatchers while outnumbered 5-1, helped take out some Death Eaters in the Battle of Hogwarts, and took down Fenrir Greyback with the help of Neville. He can also cast the Imperious Curse. When he's confident in himself, he's shown he can be very successful, such as his performance as a keeper in Quidditch when he thought he had taken Liquid Luck. But his arrogance can sometimes get the best of him as well, like when Hermione trounced him in a duel. Ginny seemed all around superior to her brother in both Quidditch and spellcasting. Out of the Dumbledore's army members, her raw power was the most impressive with her mastery of the Reductor Curse. During her 4th year, she defeated Draco with her signature Bogey Hex, with Ron admitting she was the best out of him, Neville, and Luna in that particular encounter. In her 5th year, Slughorn saw her use the Bogey Hex and wanted her in the Slug Club, something Ron wasn't invited to. In the 6th film, she held off Bellatrix, Greyback, and another Death Eater with the help of Harry for a short time. And in the 7th book, she fought Bellatrix to a stalemate with the help of Hermione and Luna. Fred and George should be about the same level as each other, with Fred dueling and defeating a Death Eater, and George defeating the Death Eater Yaxley with the help of Lee Jordan. Percy Weasley defeated the Minister of Magic Pius Thickness in a duel, making him seemingly turn into some form of sea urchin. And he was fighting alongside his brother Fred, so it would make sense for him to go a tier above Pius, and be in the same tier as Fred. His older brother Bill Weasley was an Order of the Phoenix member, taking part in the Battle of the Astronomy Tower, the Battle of the Seven Potters, and the Battle of Hogwarts. His occupation was a curse breaker, which means he's skilled in counter curses. Fenrir Greyback is the werewolf that turned Lupin, and even in his human form he has a beastly appearance, with sharp teeth and nails that he can use to maul his prey. He tore Bill's face up during the Battle of the Astronomy Tower, and killed Lavender Brown during the Battle of Hogwarts. He manhandled Ollivander, blocked a spell from 6th year Harry, helped destroy the Weasley home, and was one of the Death Eaters who destroyed the Muggle Bridge in the movie. He wasn't given the honor of getting the Dark Mark and was bullied by the other Death Eaters, so I believe he should be below most of the known Death Eaters. Peter Pettigrew, also known as Wormtail, was able to murder Cedric and stomp 4th year Harry. He cast a spell that created a powerful explosion, killing 12 Muggles in a 20-foot radius of him, and created a deep crater. Seeing this led Fudge to believe only trained hit wizards would stand a chance against the person who cast it, and that Hagrid wouldn't have been able to take care of him, which could scale Peter higher than where I placed him. At the very least, I think this shows Fudge would be below him. However, Peter is a coward, and McGonagall said he was always hopeless at dueling, though this was in reference to him as a kid and before they knew he was the one who actually caused the explosion. Similar to Greyback, he seemed to be treated as a second-class Death Eater, but he has the Dark Mark and better feats overall, so I put him above Greyback, but kept him below the other named Death Eaters. Walden McNair was the executioner who was gonna kill Buckbeak, and he was also a Death Eater. He was an extremely large and strong man, able to almost completely lift 15-year-old Harry off the ground, choking him with one hand. He would have killed him if Neville didn't jab a wand in his eye. Amicus and Electo Caro are sibling Death Eaters who ended up teaching at Hogwarts while Snape was headmaster, teaching the kids spells like Crucio and Fiendfire. Amicus seemed to have the edge over Ginny during the end of her 5th year, while she was under the effects of Felix Felicis. Thorfinn Rowell's a bit of a spaz, and likes to spam spells like a madman, which made him the most dangerous enemy during the Battle of the Astronomy Tower. But this is also a negative, because he ended up accidentally killing his own teammate. He was quickly stunned by Harry in the 7th film, so while he's a big threat in a multi-person battle, to both sides actually, I think in a 1v1 duel, he's one of the weaker named Death Eaters. Dean Thomas was skilled enough to duel Dullahav, one of the most deadly Death Eaters, for at least a short period of time. And during that duel, he was able to knock out another Death Eater after he was temporarily distracted, showing his quick wit in battle. Though Dean may have been taken out there by Dullahav if Parvati hadn't covered him. Hermione Granger is arguably the most skilled witch of her generation, with her vast amount of knowledge and quick wit leading some to believe she might even be more powerful than Harry. For example, she was the one who saved their group from falling to their deaths in Gringotts. In her 5th year, she easily defeated Ron and stunned 2 Death Eaters. In her would-be 7th year, she disarmed Mundungus as well as Draco Malfoy, took out 2 Snatchers with 1 spell, blasted back Fenrir Greyback, and stunned Dullahav, though he was outnumbered. Like I mentioned twice already, she was able to stalemate Bellatrix with Ginny and Luna by her side. The mid-professor tier is for characters that are powerful enough to take on multiple standard aurors or Death Eaters. Dobby the House Elf is skilled with wandless magic, being able to perform telekinesis, operate in and out of locations wizards can't, and charm objects such as bludgers to make them attack people. Combat-wise, he was able to blast back Lucius Malfoy, disarm his wife Narcissa, and knock out Wormtail from behind. Unfortunately for Dobby, none of these opponents were directly focusing on him, so the feats aren't as impressive as they initially seem. Aragog and Acromantulas in general are next. In the game Hogwarts Legacy, a house elf was killed by an Acromantula, and admitted himself that the large spider was too much for him. In the book, Aragog was described as being the size of a small elephant, and if their large size wasn't enough, they also seemed to be spell resistant, as another large spider that was likely an Acromantula was able to tank multiple spells from Harry and Cedric, only finally going down after they hit it at the same time. In the film, Slughorn asked Hagrid how he managed to kill one, indicating even a wizard of Slughorn's caliber considers them a major threat. According to a Hogwarts Legacy field guide page, the venom of an Acromantula is extremely poisonous. To make matters worse, these giant spiders have near human level intelligence. Fluffy the giant 3-headed dog was larger than even the biggest of elephants, and I think his size and strength would be too much for Aragog. Aragog's venom would be his only chance, but as he's trying to envenomate one head, the other 2 will be tearing him apart. So unless his venom works instantly, he'll become Fluffy's chew toy. Quirrell was forced to put Fluffy to sleep to get past him, and he easily defeated a troll bigger than the one Harry, Ron, and Hermione dealt with. Hagrid also implied Fluffy would be harder to handle than a dragon. Zobus may be smaller than Fluffy, but they're incredibly fast and powerful, being able to travel 1,000 miles in a day, and can take you from one part of Paris to the next in a single leap. They also have the ability to teleport, and can do so in places that even wizards can't. Rubeus Hagrid being this high may be a surprise to some of you movie-only fans, but Hagrid in the books is an actual beast. His half-giant blood makes him resistant to spells and incredibly powerful, defeating multiple aurors simultaneously as they were all firing spells at him. He even tanked repeated curses from the Death Eater Raoul, who would have no reason to hold back, and defeated the Death Eater McNair. One badass moment I would like to mention is when Hagrid straight up jumped off his flying bike to tackle a Death Eater midair. Another crazy feat is how he managed to go into Aragog's spider den, pick up his small elephant-sized dead body, and leave with it alive with an army of giant spiders trying to eat him. Now it makes sense how Hagrid could deal with all those dangerous creatures. It's a shame the movies excluded these moments, even having Hagrid getting knocked out by a single spell. In the films he still had a few cool scenes, like when he bent a barrel of a gun with his bare hands, and it took multiple Death Eaters to keep him restrained. We also can't forget that Hagrid is a wizard that can cast spells, including non-verbal ones, which is something Hogwarts students aren't trained to master until their 6th year, and even then apparently not all wizards can do it. So I would say even movie Hagrid should at least be high student tier. Grop was Hagrid's half-brother and was full giant, standing 16 feet tall, which is actually short for giants, with their average height being at least 20 feet tall. Despite this, he was able to clash with other giants on equal footing, even taking on multiple at once with the help of Buckbeak and some Thestrals. Due to this, pretty much all giants are represented by this spot as well. A giant forced Harry, Ron, and Hermione to retreat even though they were easily taking down Death Eaters, though it was implied Hermione might have been able to stun the giant. You could actually argue Hagrid above giants, or at least Grop, since he forced Grop against his will to leave his home and tied him to a tree in the Forbidden Forest. But I decided against it as we don't really know how hard Grop truly fought back, and from what we've seen, it didn't seem that hard, yet he still managed to knock around Hagrid and injure him. It would probably be a close fight, with the full giants having the size and strength advantage, and Hagrid having the magical advantage. Madame Maxine would also likely be around here since she's a half-giant like Hagrid, and should also be a powerful wizard considering she's a headmistress of a school. Barty Crouch Jr. managed to defeat Mad-Eye Moody with the help of Wormtail, and was skilled enough to pretend to be him for an entire school year. This is impressive as Moody was arguably the best Auror of recent times, but since it was a 2v1 and Barty got restrained by his own house elf and couldn't break free on his own, I kept him in this tier. Arthur Weasley was an Order of the Phoenix member who fought in the Battle of the Seven Potters and the Battle of Hogwarts where he was made one of the team leaders. He battled and likely defeated multiple Death Eaters and considered himself a match for Lucius Malfoy, his rival, who I put right next to him. Lucius seemed to be the Death Eater in charge of getting Harry's prophecy, even having some command over Bellatrix. He easily blocked spells from Harry and his friends, blocked a surprise spell from Tonks, and possibly dueled Lupin after Remus came in between him and Potter. In the movie, he lasted longer than Dullahob in their 2v2 duel against Harry and Sirius. Nymphadora...
Don't call me Nymphadora.
I mean Tonks, is another member of the Order of the Phoenix, as well as an Auror, though she admits she's below Kingsley and a bit clumsy. She's fought Rowell and has survived multiple battles with the strongest of Voldemort's followers, her aunt Bellatrix Lestrange. Her husband Remus Lupin is next to her. He was a master of the Patronus Charm, which is above ordinary wizarding level, and he's defeated numerous Death Eaters, coming out alive from many battles. Well, until he didn't. Augustus Rookwood was skilled enough to duel with Kingsley, the most skilled Auror at the time, and was implied to be the one who killed Fred. His ancestor Victor Rookwood would also likely be in this tier. Corbin Yaxley was one of the strongest Death Eaters, being able to duel Professor Flitwick for a time, but him getting defeated by George Weasley and Lee Jordan limited him from being placed in the tier above. Professor Horace Slughorn dueled Voldemort himself with the help of McGonagall and Kingsley. This alone is enough to get him to this tier, but since this is his only feat, I don't think it's enough to place him in the tier above. Theseus Scamander was the head Auror of England during his time, and was skilled enough to defeat a multitude of Grindelwald's followers coming at him at once. He was strong enough to block Grindelwald's fire created by the Elder Wand that was killing other Aurors. His younger brother Newt Scamander wasn't an Auror, but he was skilled enough for the Ministry to want him to become one, and was their first choice for the job of tracking down and killing Credence. He's a skilled fighter, being able to integrate beasts such as the Swooping Evil into his fighting style. This particular beast can reflect spells with its body and is highly venomous. This fighting style even allowed Newt to restrain Grindelwald, though Grindelwald wasn't focused on him and didn't have the Elder Wand at the time. Harry Potter has gone through more during his school years than most will in a lifetime, and by his 7th year he was already a veteran fighter. By the time of his 3rd year, it seemed he could already conjure a more powerful Patronus than Lupin. During his 5th year he was so far beyond everybody his classmates asked him to teach them defensive magic, with even the extremely knowledgeable Hermione and older Weasley twins deferring to his expertise. During that year he managed to land the Cruciatus Curse on Bellatrix, and arguably could have defeated her then if he managed to properly use the spell, though it was made pretty clear he wasn't on her level at the time. He has even gone up against the Big Bad himself, clashing with Voldemort as early as his 4th year, and having an extremely extended duel with him during their final battle at Hogwarts in the final movie. In the books he used his invisibility cloak to his advantage multiple times, stunning unsuspecting enemies. Even without the cloak, he stunned one of the Carrows at the end of his 6th year. Overall, Harry in the books and movies seem to be above the average Death Eater, but still not on the level of the top tiered ones. The high Professor tiers for elite wizards such as top-of-the-line Aurors and Death Eaters. The Thunderbird has the power to create thunderstorms, and Newt said if it escaped, things could have gotten quite catastrophic. It doesn't have any combat feats, and I ran out of room, so it didn't make it on the final list, but it would probably be somewhere around here. Graphorns are extremely aggressive and are known to scar trolls. They have a hide even tougher than a dragon's, and can repel most spells. Graphorns are one of the strongest creatures you can fight in Hogwarts Legacy, and they smash through barriers and wizards alike. Harry's parents, James and Lily Potter, were powerful wizards and members of the original Order of the Phoenix. James seemed to be the leader of his friend group, with both Sirius and Lupin holding him in high esteem, and his wife Lily was stated to be a gifted witch and one of Slughorn's best students. Most importantly, she was the cause of Voldemort's first defeat. Amelia Bones was the head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement and such a gifted witch that when she was killed, the Ministry believed Voldemort did it himself, and the evidence showed that she put up a real fight. She put up a better fight than James did, though it's worth noting James didn't have his wand on him at the time he was killed. Gunnar Grimston was a skilled bounty hunter who trapped Nagini in a wall, non-verbally cast Avada Kedavra, and held off Credence's Obscurus for an extended period of time. Yusuf Kama was able to take out a large amount of Grindelwald followers with a single spell. Professor Lally Hicks was stated to have superb defensive magic by Dumbledore himself, and she backed this up when she sent an entire group of wizards running, and some flying, with a storm she created, as well as when she defeated a bunch of Grindelwald's followers fighting alongside Theseus. Tina Goldstein was the head Auror of the United States and blocked a spell from Theseus from behind and quickly stomped him. She was able to hold her own for a bit against Grindelwald when he wasn't using the Elder Wand. Kingsley Shacklebolt was the best active Auror during the time of the Harry Potter books. He dueled 2 Death Eaters at once and later beat Rookwood during the Battle of the Ministry. During the Battle of the 7 Potters, he was chased by 5 Death Eaters, took down 2, possibly killing 1, and was chased by Voldemort for a bit, but still managed to make it out alive. He was one of the 3 that dueled Lord Voldemort in the Battle of Hogwarts. Kingsley may have been the best Auror of his time, but Mad-Eye Moody was the best Auror of all time, so Kingsley was just lucky he was retired. Out of the people participating in the Battle of the 7 Potters, it was pretty much directly implied Voldemort himself considered Mad-Eye to be the strongest, and Kingsley second. Moody basically filled half the cells of Azkaban, and one person he sent was Igor Karkaroff, who ended up becoming the headmaster of Durmstrang. Antonin Dolohov defeated Moody during the Battle of the Ministry. His signature spell is a purple flame created from a slash of his wand that took out Hermione and knocked back Harry even while using Protego. He was about to use it on Sirius before Harry stunned him. Professor Phileas Flitwick was a dueling champion and managed to defeat Dolohov. Sirius Black dueled Lucius Malfoy and Dolohov at the same time, taking Dolohov out. Granted, he had Harry to back him up, but 15-year-old Harry was likely the weakest link in that fight. Sirius then quickly dispatched Lucius in a fair 1v1. In the book, he seemed confident when dueling Bellatrix, throwing out provocations, but his overconfidence cost him his life. Bellatrix Lestrange was stated to be Voldemort's best lieutenant, and her feats backed this up. She defeated Tonks, Kingsley, and Sirius back-to-back at the Ministry, and blocked a spell from Dumbledore. She stomped Fenrir Greyback, Scabier, and 2 other Snatchers simultaneously, and was able to stalemate Hermione, Ginny, and Luna at the same time in the final book. Molly Weasley was able to finally put an end to her lunacy, killing her in a 1v1 duel. Though it's worth noting Bellatrix didn't have her original wand in the Battle of Hogwarts and was cocky fighting Molly just as Sirius had been to her previously. Minerva McGonagall was Deputy Headmistress, later Headmistress of Hogwarts, and she was able to perform a spell faster than Harry could believe when fighting Snape, and Harry had fought Bellatrix before. Madame Pomfrey thought that 4 Aurors working together wouldn't have been able to stun McGonagall in a fair fight. In the book, she sent Electo Carrow running with her arms over her head, and in the movie, her deflected spells one-shot the Carrows. As I mentioned before, Minerva was one of the 3 who fought together against Lord Voldemort. Severus Snape blocked the spell from McGonagall that Harry couldn't believe the speed of, and his defense was so quick it threw Minerva off balance. What's even more impressive was that it was a surprise attack. In the movie, McGonagall seemingly forced Snape to retreat, but in the book he didn't run until Flitwick, Sprout, and Slughorn showed up, and even countered Flitwick's spell. But he was really on their side the entire time, so he would have been holding back and wouldn't have actually wanted to hurt them. He probably even purposefully diverted McGonagall's spells into the Carrows. At the end of the Half-Blood Prince, he deflected every spell from Harry easily and almost lazily, while Bellatrix was tagged by a year younger Harry by one of the same spells Snape blocked. I think this directly scales Snape above her. Not to mention he was the only one of Voldemort's followers who learned unassisted flight, which is a big deal in the books unlike the movies, where almost everyone can seemingly fly without a broom. Harry Potter and the Cursed Child was the head Auror of England and was able to match Voldemort's daughter Delphi's spell, and fiercely exchange blows with her despite her watching Harry for years in preparation for this fight. The only other person he fought in the play was Draco, who was able to have a pretty even fight with him, though Harry didn't want to fight and Malfoy did. Draco was also stated to have gotten better, but Potter worse, though Draco might have meant worse than when Harry was an Auror in his prime, not when he was in school, and he was likely just making fun of him anyways. Regardless, a prime Harry should be in this tier, and a prime Draco probably would be as well. The Beast tier is for characters and creatures above the level any regular wizard can really hope to achieve. Nagini was able to defeat Arthur Weasley as well as Harry and Hermione at the same time. She's a Horcrux and is protected because of that, so spells bounce off of her. And Harry's wand was even destroyed due to a spell backfiring off of her. It seems she might even be resistant to Avada Kedavra, so she would probably just bull rush through any spells and strike her victim to death. She also has venom that keeps wounds open. Dragons are some of the mightiest creatures in the Harry Potter world, with the ability to fly and shoot fire. It was stated by Sirius that it takes about half a dozen wizards at a time to overcome one. Their eyes are their weak point, and a conjunctivitis curse is an effective means of defense, but it won't be enough to put it down, just temporarily blind it. The Hebridean Black is the species of dragon seen in Hogwarts Legacy. It's supposed to only grow up to 30 feet in length, but it was clearly upsized in Hogwarts Legacy. The dragon guarding Gringotts is a Ukrainian Ironbelly, which is the largest dragon species in the world. None of the wizard guards or goblins could stop it as it broke free from the bank. The Hungarian Horntail is stated to be the most dangerous dragon breed by Newt Scamander himself, and it also has the longest fire-breathing range. It's stated that there's no creature more deadly than the basilisk. Anyone that looks into its eyes instantly dies, and its venom is highly toxic, being able to kill in minutes. It can even destroy Horcruxes, meaning Nagini isn't safe. Acromantulas such as Aragog fear basilisks above all others, and won't even speak its name. Nothing instills fear in a basilisk but a rooster, as its crow is fatal to it. But I think there's another creature the basilisk should fear. The Manticore from the Fantastic Beasts movie is huge and can attack without need for a visual on its target, using its large stingers that shoot out lava to pierce its prey. The final boss of Hogwarts Legacy, Ranrock, after absorbing the power from the final repository, became a powerful dragon fueled on the power of ancient magic. He should be more powerful than any of the beasts or wizards below, but not the Weeaboo warrior. If you guys weren't aware, I was isekai'd into the wizarding world of Harry Potter as a 5th year student of Hogwarts, and I quickly acquired power, learning the unforgivable curses, and mastering ancient magic, becoming the strongest character in the verse at the time. I used my magic to come back to this world to try and take over, but I unfortunately lost all my magic the second I came back, so I'm back to making YouTube videos. Aberforth Dumbledore had a 3-way duel with his brother Albus and Grindelwald when they were younger, and later stopped Grindelwald's Avada Kedavra with the Elder Wand along with his brother, reacting at the same speed as Albus, with literally everyone around them standing there like statues, including Theseus, Lally, and Yusuf. This at bare minimum puts him a tier above them. He also showed off the biggest Patronus we've seen in the films, getting rid of an army of Dementors by himself, with Kingsley just standing there doing nothing, indicating to me that Aberforth is likely a level above him. His son Credence is a powerful wizard, just like his father and uncle, being able to blast apart the side of a mountain the first time he got a wand. He also has an Obscurus within him that has the power to blow apart large buildings. He learned to control this power and used it to fight Dumbledore. Grindelwald believed him to be the only one with the power to kill Albus Dumbledore. Delphine, also known as Delphi, was the daughter of Voldemort and Bellatrix Lestrange. Like her father, she has the ability to fly without a broom and speak to snakes. She outdueled Harry, disarming him, with it being stated she's far stronger. Harry even admits he isn't stronger than her. It took the combined might of an adult Harry, Ron, Hermione, Ginny, and Draco to take her down, with the fight being described as titanic. But she admits herself Voldemort is superior to her, and she reveres him, so I don't think she's quite on his level. The Headmaster Tier is for the strongest of the verse, who pretty much nobody can match, even in large groups. The Nundu is arguably the most dangerous creature in the world. It has never taken less than 100 skilled wizards working together to subdue one, and they have breath virulent enough to eliminate entire villages. Grindelwald, even without a wand, could stomp Newt and Tina at the same time. With just a regular wand, he was able to take on a massive group of Aurors, and was winning before Newt intervened. With the Elder Wand, he was able to cast a powerful fire spell that killed multiple Aurors, and was going to burn down all of Paris if not stopped. He also had the ability to somewhat look into the future, and this could help him prepare for battle. He easily stomped Credence, which solidifies him being in a tier above him. Dumbledore also easily dealt with Credence, and was able to match Grindelwald even though his ex-lover was in possession of the most powerful wand in existence. Dumbledore later defeats Grindelwald in what was said to be the greatest duel ever fought, which directly scales him higher. Lord Voldemort has multiple statements saying he's the most dangerous and powerful dark wizard of all time, which also directly scales him above Grindelwald. Now me putting him above Dumbledore is much more contentious. Both of these two men are powerful wizards, but Voldemort was willing to partake in magic Dumbledore wasn't. He created Horcruxes to make himself immortal, so to finish Voldemort off, he would have to have all of his Horcruxes destroyed first. Dumbledore tried to do this, but ended up being fatally cursed by one of them. You could even argue Voldemort's just straight up stronger, as in the 5th film, he and Dumbledore seemed to be equally matched in a back and forth duel, but Dumbledore had the Elder Wand, which gave him an advantage. When Voldemort attained the Elder Wand, he performed the greatest magical power feat in the entire series, taking down the protective shield over Hogwarts with a single spell, when hundreds if not thousands of spells from his Death Eaters weren't even putting a dent in it. This was done when he wasn't even the true master of the Elder Wand, and it was resisting him. He was also stated to be the most accomplished Legilimens the world has ever seen, and can invade and control people's minds, giving them visions to torture them into madness. When you look at all this together, I believe Voldemort holds the title as the most powerful wizard in the Harry Potter universe, though I do believe Dumbledore could have held that title if he wanted to and decided to go as far as Tom did to achieve power. We've come to the end of this wizarding adventure. If you want more Harry Potter content from me, go check out my gaming channel, the Weeaboo Gaming Warrior. where my time in the Harry Potter universe was documented for you all to enjoy. Actually, you know what? I think I have enough magic for one last spell. Imperio. Go subscribe to my gaming channel, as well as this one if you haven't already, and watch all my videos on repeat for the rest of your life.